So I was recently asked an interesting question. Somebody asked me, Michele, do you think that malignant narcissists are simply clueless, difficult people that don't really understand what they're doing to others? Or do you think that, it crosses the line into something more insidious or evil? So I kind of wanted to talk about that today. And I want to talk about two criteria that are needed in order to consider something or someone as crossing that line into something evil. Okay, after I present it, I would love to hear what you guys think. So without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. So we all know that anyone that's high on the scale of narcissism, and just for the record, we are all on that scale, okay? Some of us are too high up on the scale, and that leads to malignant narcissism, and some of us are too low on that scale, which leads to severe codependency. Okay, so hopefully, as we're on our journey, we're kind of equalizing and getting somewhere in the middle. But when I'm talking about malignant narcissists, for the sake of this video, I really want to talk about people that would be super high on the scale, that if they were to go to a psychologist or a therapist, that they could actually be diagnosed with NPD, okay? So obviously, anyone that's high up on that scale is a difficult person. Why? Well, anyone that's high up on that scale is going to be very self-centered. They're going to be kind of the person that it's my way or the highway, right? They won't respect boundaries. They don't see your perspective. They see things in black and white. They expect others to kind of revolve around them. So they're takers more than they are givers. In fact, they're not givers, they're just takers. So obviously, when we look at those characteristics, that could describe a difficult person. But just because somebody might have those traits and be high on the scale of narcissism doesn't necessarily mean that they cross into that realm of something darker, okay? Obviously, working around somebody or being in a relationship with somebody that has those qualities would be difficult, right? That would be a difficult person. So let's talk about the two things that cause a difficult person like that to shift into that really dark realm. The first criteria, and this is coming from a publication that I've been reading recently. I can't remember the author's name, but the book is called People of the Lie. Okay, and I'll leave the link in the description box for anyone that, would enjoy reading that. But he talks about two things that cause somebody to go from being difficult into someone that's evil. And the first criteria that he mentions is deception. He talks about something that's really evil doesn't really look evil on the outside. It may even look deceptively good. Deceptively charming, deceptively caring, empathic, and loving. And that's kind of what makes it so bad, is because it's not about just, putting your best foot forward. We're talking about pure deception, where you're actually pretending to be or portraying yourself as something you really aren't, like at all. And when it comes to malignant narcissists, it kind of makes me think of Munchausen by proxy, where if you've ever heard of that illness, it has to do with a parent who intentionally inflicts harm on their child, intentionally poisons or harms their child so that that child needs professional help. And then they swoop in and act like the savior of that child. That's a real illness, and that is sick. Imagine intentionally making your child sick just so that you can feel like people admire you for taking care of that child. Isn't that so similar to what malignant narcissists do, and more so the covert narcissist, right? Who behind closed doors is making you sick, making you psychologically, emotionally, spiritually sick. And then presenting you, right, in this now psychologically broken down state, to the point that you see that you're not the same. You see that there's now something wrong with you. Other people see that there's something wrong with you, but they are portraying themselves as the one that's going to help you. Little does anyone know that they are the ones that are actually causing your psychological breakdown. In that book that I'm reading, the author really kind of makes the point that evil can be compared with the destruction that it brings about, right? So think about the damage of that. Not only are you being broken down psychologically by someone who's presenting to the world as, you know, the one that's going to help you, the one that's really concerned about all of these psychological changes that you're going through, and everyone's going up to you now telling you, wow, you know, your spouse is, or your parent, or your family member or friend is amazing. Like, you should feel so blessed that they're in your life trying to help you. Think about how that would feel as a victim to know what's really going on, to have your own reality invalidated, and the false reality of somebody that is purposely trying to destroy you is validated. I can't even begin to describe how damaging that is. A lot of my clients come to me in that state where nobody believed them. Nobody knew what was going on because the facade, the smoke and mirrors of the other person was so well orchestrated that everyone fell for it. And because the victim, and here's the other interesting thing when it comes to malignant narcissism, usually somebody with a personality disorder suffers, right? You suffer if you have schizophrenia. It's a challenge. It affects you. You suffer if you have a personality disorder. The weird thing about malignant narcissism, covert narcissists, is that they don't suffer with their illness. It's the family members that get sicker and sicker. And the more sick their family is, the better they are able to kind of present themselves to the world. So imagine the destruction to a victim who's going through that. Just like the destruction of a child that has a parent that has Munchausen by proxy. That child is being destroyed and then saved, destroyed and then saved for the benefit of the parent's ego. Well, it's the same thing with malignant narcissism. So there's that deception that plays a part in evil. And no one would believe the truths that are really taking place because that deception is so well orchestrated. So that's one thing to consider when you're thinking of somebody that is possibly a malignant covert narcissist, whether it's just that they are difficult or have they crossed that realm. And another thing to think about when you're contemplating, is this person just a difficult person or do they cross the line, is the intention they have towards their family members or towards you, in this case, if you're evaluating somebody in your life. And the intention of somebody that's difficult is just their focus on self, right? They just can't be bothered to think of how other people feel. They just don't care how other people feel. It's all about them. Well, crossing the line from that, being difficult, into, you know, a really dark place would be that there's more intention. Somebody evil, okay, this is what's mentioned in this book, People of the Lie. Somebody that's evil has an intent, and their intent isn't to kill you physically. Okay, that's not their intent, but real evil has a darker intention. And that intention is to destroy you on the inside, destroy your soul, the foundations of your core being, your values, your passions, your connection to self. It's an intent to destroy that. And if you think about it, you think about malignant narcissists, they aren't happy when you're happy. They don't support you when things are going well in your life. If you really look at the psychological manipulation tactics that they use, they are all designed to cause you to feel certain emotional states and stay stuck in them. They cause you to stay angry, right? So now instead of being laid back, happy, passionate, feeling joy, carefree, you're now full of anger. In fact, a lot of the people that I work with, it's almost like they have to go through the process of learning how to release that anger in a healthy way because it is all consuming. So you're left with nothing but anger on the inside, hatred, resentment, confusion, feeling lost, and a complete detachment from who you once were or who you really are. And that's the intent of a malignant narcissist. If you look at what they do and how they do it, that is their ultimate determination, is to leave you in that state. The sad part is how effective that is, because it's almost like they cause you to separate from your own internal goodness. I've worked with people that have been out of a relationship for years away from malignant narcissists, whatever the relationship that they were in. They're now out of those relationships and they're still stuck in those states. They're so full of anger. They're so full of resentment, feelings of betrayal, lack of trust, inability to be themselves. They're battling psychological challenges because of what they've gone through. And that can go on for years until you finally start kind of focusing on you and how to get back to that goodness that you once had, how to get back to who you really are. So my point is that when you look at those two criteria that are mentioned in that publication of intention and deception, what do you think? Do you think that honestly a malignant covert narcissist is simply lost and doesn't know what they're doing? When you think about that intent again for a second, or that deception, I should say, isn't it interesting how when other people are around, they don't exhibit the same behaviors? So that again shows if they really hide those behaviors, then on a certain level, they know those behaviors are wrong. So it's just something to look, it's just something to understand. And the reason why I made this video, it might seem like, well, what's the big deal? Who cares? They're bad, they're evil. Well, the reason I made this video isn't so much to just focus and highlight the fact if somebody's bad or evil. It's more like trying to break through the facade that they're just difficult people. Because if we don't realize the depth of destruction that they do, then unfortunately we're tempted to try to fix or help them. And nothing could be more dangerous than trying to do that. You can completely lose yourself trying to do something like that. So we have to at some point look at it for what it is. So just thinking about that deception, okay, I just want to kind of portray how well they do it and how well they are able to deceive people. Imagine if somebody picked up a dog at a shelter, right? And this dog was like skittish. It would attack people. It was like out of control. It was weird. It had all kinds of issues and problems. And you're in a crowded room and this person's explaining this dog and how much he loves it or she loves it and how much she's determined to help this dog and she wants to give it a good life. You're going to be like in awe. You're going to be like, wow, what a great person. Like, I couldn't do that. That dog's a little too hard to handle. I could never do that. I don't have it in me to be able to do that. But imagine how your perception would change of this person if right before that person entered the room, if they were in a room with their dog and you were able to see the camera that was in that room and you saw that same owner who picked up this dog from the shelter, beating that dog, kicking it, hitting it, abusing it, and then coming out and portraying himself or herself as the savior of this dog that was, about to be euthanized. Now, how would you feel? Would you still feel like that person was an amazing person? No. But the only reason your perception changed is when you had evidence of the abuse that was going on. Well, with malignant narcissists, no one usually gets that glimpse into what goes on behind closed doors. So that deception goes on undiscovered, and the victim is normally viewed as the problem. Talk about damaging. Okay, so again, the purpose of this video is if there's somebody in your life that is destroying you emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, in every way possible, you have to evaluate it for what it is and really look at it and understand it, because if you don't, You can be fooled into thinking that you can help someone that has no intention of changing and has no interest in your well-being.